what are the kind of demand drivers, what innovation areas are being prioritized both by startups and the large global industry members, and where do we see in terms of innovation, what kind of technology stack is getting adopted, how more and more cybersecurity, whether it is services and products, are going the cloud native route. So I'll be essentially talking more about what is the trend that we are seeing in terms of demand for cybersecurity and the innovation ecosystem that is getting built up. The first thing I would like to start with, I'm being very modest in what I'm saying, that India has emerged as a global hub for cybersecurity. It's not just the premier academic institutions who are doing a lot of research, a huge pipeline of PhD candidates and MTech candidates, but there are three industry constituents who have made India into a global hub for cybersecurity in the last 3 to 4 years. It was almost in 2015-16. We had some NASCOM and DSCI had something called as a cybersecurity task force, where we took on a mission and a goal to make India a global hub for cybersecurity. It was not at that point of time. In fact, Professor Krishnashree was engaged with us when we tried to visit some other global geographies where a lot of cyber security clusters were developed, whether it was in Hague, in Israel, in the UK, in London, and of course in some locations in the US. She had joined us in a couple of those locations. So, what is driving this attention to India as a cybersecurity provider? One is the global services industry, which all of us know. It's already, pretty much the global hub for IT. In addition to that, in the last 4 5 years, we have seen cybersecurity from the services industry, all the Indian and the global services companies which operate of India. For example, they moved their revenues in such a way that we are almost at 4.3 billion. The 2020 number will be coming up, and even the talent pool they are hiring, and the number of global customers they are servicing, the number of global SOCs they have established in various geographies in Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, and in the US also. That's one driver that is making, and they're servicing the world out of India, from India, and of course in some of the global geographies. Second is the cybersecurity product landscape. What was extremely important is that the cybersecurity product landscapes, the revenue was about 450 million in 2018, but it grew to $1 billion by 2020 December. And some of the solutions that they're working on is whether it is in the next generation security, that we are seeing a lot in terms of quantum crypto. We are seeing their growth in US, Middle East, and in Asia Pacific. Similarly, when you look at the global corporations, there are a lot of global corporations which were already operating out of India for shared services for analytics. But if you look at it now, many of them are actually setting up cyber GCCs. We call them as global competency centers, which are setting up cyber GCCs. And that footprint is growing in most cities, whether it's Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Pune, Bangalore. These are some of the locations where they are really growing. So if you look at globally, why is cybersecurity getting so much attention, because of which both academia, startups, and large industry are beginning to innovate and build a lot of new products, is because particularly post-COVID, while we've had a lot of headwinds for economy across various verticals, so many verticals were really in the red because of the lockdown. But what is interesting to note is COVID and the pandemic impact has actually accelerated the adoption of digital and online. And because of that, the attention to cybersecurity, data protection, and privacy has already been improved quite a bit. Okay. And globally, we are seeing that it can be, at the end of 2020 itself, it was meant to be a $123 billion industry, because of which there will be requirement for new talent pool, there will be requirement for new products, new services, new verticals that are getting opened up for adoption of cyber, because they're going the digital route. And what we are seeing is that because of the work from home at scale that has happened in India, whether it's in the IT industry or in the banking and financial services industry, even very critical, sectors like oil and gas. A lot of work was opening from remote locations. So because of which we see that there will be the threat landscape will only increase, because of which there would be more breaches, and because of which there would be more regulatory attention, consumer attention to the impact of the breach, because of which businesses are going to invest, they're going to look for those new products and technologies. And we are also seeing that because post pandemic, before I come to cybersecurity, the adoption of cloud, if you look at market reports of the way the large cloud providers performed, whether it is, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, because of which, while there is a cloud adoption for the overall IT and digital, there is also a cloud adoption for security. More security services are being delivered through the cloud, right? The security products are being hosted on the cloud. Increasingly, we are seeing there is no new product that is coming to the market which is either not cloud ready, and mostly new products are expected to be cloud native. That means they will only work on the cloud. We are already seeing a lot of examples of that globally and in India. Why I'm repeating that point is, if you're a young researcher, right, or a PhD student or MTech thinking of a product, you need to understand this trend of where enterprise digital and IT is moving. So that if you're thinking of a new product, you need to look at a product which is architected for the cloud, right? So it is not a regular, it's not a regular business solution. Now, even if you're building a security product for vulnerability management for an IoT device, or you're building a security product for mobiles, you're building a security product for the cloud stack, or for OT security, you need to be able to architect that solution which is likely to be cloud ready, right? If you see, I think way back in beginning of 2020 or 2019, Gartner had predicted that all new entrants into cybersecurity, which means all the new startups and new companies which are building a product for cyber, or any historic vendor who has built an on-premise solution, is likely to build a new product which is a cloud-based, subscription-based model. And it is extremely important that if you're a researcher, you look at enterprise digital trends, enterprise IT adoption trends before you think of how are you going to build a security product. Because often we see a mismatch that the IT industry and the digital adoption of a large enterprise is going one way, whereas new products are coming according to the paradigm of the old world. They're still trying to look at a building a solution which is likely to be on-prem. I think it's extremely important you marry your research and innovation intellect with what is the enterprise IT adoption. I often, as I engage with startups, we engage from DSCI with a lot of academia, and we engage with all the CIOs, global CIOs, and the large enterprise Indian CIOs. There is a mismatch where enterprise is headed in terms of digital and the new products that are coming up, where the new products are probably, still looking at the old construct of how IT was being done in-house, IT was being done on-prem. That's why I'm spending this little bit of time. We are also seeing a lot of new products. That means if you're a new researcher, you should look at some of this. There's a lot around multi-factor authentication because of all that is happening in the payment side, even in terms of the user authentication that is happening. Thanks to this entire remote working, there's a lot around user entity behavioral analytics. And when you do this user entity behavior analytics, can there be a privacy preserving way, or you balance the demands of privacy with the productivity requirements of your workforce? This is another one that we are looking at. And of course, everything to do with, the web application security. Because why that is important now, I think WAF was always important. Why it is now getting increasingly more important is because more critical enterprise workloads are moving to the cloud, right? They're moving on to the web, whether it is in the healthcare domain, in the e-commerce domain, edutech domain. How much education has gone virtual online? So as more applications move online, workloads are moving to the cloud. the web application security and all of that is becoming very important. We are beginning to see a lot of new cybersecurity frameworks come in, whether it is in the zero trust network architecture, zero trust, this Carta from Gartner, and in the active defense. There are a lot of them that are coming up. And when people are building those products, or enterprises are looking at what they need to do, these frameworks. So there are a lot of CISOs, CIOs who are looking at all these new frameworks that are coming up. So globally, what we are seeing is uh, there is an increased digital adoption, particularly in India, because we can look at it. We are seeing so much digital happening even in laggard domains, whether it is in small and medium manufacturing, whether it is in healthcare. I think IT, ITS, large banking, insurance, telecom, they were always leaders in IT, right? And what we are seeing now is there's a lot of focus around IT OT integration, because of which, as OT networks get opened up, even the validity of our confidence in air gap networks is getting challenged now, because there is new research to prove that it may not be adequate enough in the current scenario. There's so much of remote monitoring that is happening on IP networks or on the internet for OT networks. They're getting opened up. There is a lot of new devices which are getting integrated for monitoring with the OT networks, right? And similarly, the entire industry 4.0, we've seen a lot of this in the auto manufacturing sector. Of course, in Europe and in Germany, we have seen this across all. Whereas in India, if you walk into any new plant, whether it's in the auto sector or large consumer appliances, which are manufacturing large consumer appliances, we are seeing an increased wave of IIoT or Industrial 4.0 broadly as it is called, and increased attention to enterprise workloads moving to the cloud and end user computing moving to the edge, right? Because of this work from. So when you combine these two things of all that is moving to the edge, yeah, maybe beyond the enterprise network, and all the mission critical workloads that is moving to the cloud, it creates a completely new threat landscape and creates a completely new demand for security services and products. And I don't need to repeat this. There is also a wave of consumer demand, right? Whether it is because of contactless payments, consumers have adopted contactless payments across the world. In India, all of us are familiar, whether it's because of UPI and all the new instrument, contactless has become so big, the entire QR code based payment. I mean, the kind of momentum that has happened in 1 year, I'm sure you will agree. There is a lot of demand because of that for both data protection and for cybersecurity. We are also seeing several new sectors, whether it's health and fitness, education, and of course entertainment. How much every Indian is consuming content online, whether it's content in the area of entertainment, movies, TV shows, because of which we see this. Then there is an entire thing of talent pool. There is a huge shortage. There are enough and more reports. I don't want to do scaremongering on that in terms of the talent pool demand supply gaps across various verticals, specialists, application security people, infrastructure security people, cloud security, right? There's all of this demand thing. And another important thing to remember is by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be the millennials. Now, the biggest challenge is every millennial has an option of where they want to go, right? There is so much that is happening on the digital side, there is so much that is happening on the healthcare side. How do you attract and motivate a young engineer, a young law professional, or a young management graduate, young researcher into the cybersecurity domain? Because in India, we have seen that when you look at the engineering workforce that comes out, 70-80% of them are going into the regular IT or digital. Very few are getting drawn into cyber. So I will say that even efforts that need to be made to evangelize cybersecurity as a nice career to adopt, whether it's in young women or young men coming out of colleges, is not a trivial problem that the country has to solve. Every country has to solve. I think we have a bigger problem because we have a bigger demand supply short gap, because we are hiring security professionals not just for India, we are hiring security professionals for this IT services and product industry, which is servicing almost 80 to 90 countries because of the way our services industry is. Similarly, we are seeing that in India, particularly BFSI, IT, ITS are some of the largest verticals. But in future, I think travel, hospitality, even healthcare might have to adopt a lot. Another thing that we are seeing in the breaches, when you look at any of the new breaches, we've had some reporting of some breaches in the financial services or payment industry or globally in the healthcare industry. I think sensitive and personally identified information and their breaches is creating a lot of impact for the enterprise, not because of the downtime to the business and the loss of business, but also because of the regulations that have come up where any data breach is heavily fined. EU GDPR has set that example. Even in India, we have seen Reserve Bank of India imposing fines on some banks where a breach has happened and a breach was not reported. Right. So similarly, we are seeing in terms of cloud, right? When some workload moves into the cloud, it has not been architected for the cloud, it has not been tested for the cloud, some misconfigurations or the application not designed for the cloud, creating some potential breaches. And similarly, we see that business costs, there is a lot of business cost, and business cost could be because of consumer trust or regulators attention, or sometimes it is also in terms of the fines. In terms of the Indian cybersecurity landscape, I'm just giving you a little bit, and then I'll drill down a little more on what is the kind of innovation ecosystem that is happening, right? We believe that in terms of the India domestic market, we believe that it will be almost a $3 billion by 2022. The two verticals that are going is obviously the product ecosystem, which I already told you moved to 1 billion in 2020, and services. And when I say services, it is not just services companies which are servicing India market, but it is also companies which are servicing the global markets, right? So it's almost 5.2 billion, and it is expected to go. Most importantly, they're one of the largest hirers of cybersecurity talent. Some of the key products that are in demand in large enterprises worldwide and large enterprises in India are around, I already talked about, whether it is in identity access management, endpoint detection and response, zero trust network architecture, particularly zero trust network architecture for applications, for networks, for workloads, right, for users. All of that has taken a lot of momentum in the last 1 year post-COVID, and the entire IT and OT security and user entity. Why this is important for you is that I think the future demand will not be for generalists, that you can do network security or you can do application security. I think the future demand for roles will be a little more specialized, so that as you complete your engineering, as you complete your MTech, and you are looking at a career in cybersecurity, it's extremely important you look at what is the technology trends and adoption and future adoption that is going to drive, so that you build that area of specialization. From that perspective, I wanted to highlight this point for this audience, which has a lot of students. So in terms of the innovation ecosystem, globally we see this, we are beginning to see this a lot in India with the kind of product companies that have come into the market and the number of startups that have come into the market. Is, I think, the security operations centers. I think now a large enterprise having a security operations center is almost like a hygiene factor. It's similar to the way, 3 years back or 10 years back, everybody had a data center, right? I don't think there was any enterprise IT which did not have a data center, right? Similarly, now every large enterprise has a security operations center, but now they're getting augmented through a lot of new gen solutions, whether it is this entire security orchestration and the SOAR technologies that are coming up. Similarly, we are beginning to see a lot of cyber fusion centers and cyber defense centers that are coming up. And what is interesting is several of our industry members run these centers out of India for their global customers. They're servicing their global customers out of India. And some of these centers are there either in Hyderabad or in Chennai or in Bangalore or any one of these cities, right? For the entire threat hunting and the threat intelligence thing. Similarly, there's a lot around AI and ML. All of us are familiar with this, but increasingly we are seeing a lot of AI ML integration for the user entity behavior analytics. This is a new area that is coming up to see, particularly to see what is the behavioral patterns to be able to identify insider risk, right? And sometimes this insider risk could be just not a properly trained employee, or it could be a motivated employee trying to create a breach, right? So that we are seeing a lot of that. Similarly, in the area of the entire endpoint detection and response, and machine learning that is getting integrated into a lot of the stack for predictive analytics. Similarly, if you see, I talked about it in even 5-10 minutes back about how cybersecurity services delivery model is moving from on-site to online. Previously, cybersecurity professionals, if an enterprise had a SOC, there were those 40, 50 of them running that SOC in various shifts 24/7. Whereas now SOCs are being set up and they're being managed virtually, remotely from using online, right? So we are beginning to see not only security products being delivered on the cloud and consumed from the cloud, we are seeing a lot of services that are moving to the cloud. Whenever we talk to the cybersecurity practice of all our industry members in India, this is the biggest trend that we are seeing. Similarly, we see a lot, given the way the pandemic has panned out and probably going to extend for some more time, we are beginning to see a lot of focus around remote working solutions, work from home solutions, and security around that, and around the mobile device management. We actually brought out um, a report on all the work from home solutions. You can look it up on our website. The National COE team brought out on that. And the amount of innovation that is happening on remote working solutions, because people are working from anywhere, from home, you can even work from your garden, right? So there is a lot of innovation that is happening both from the global companies and the Indian startups. Particularly, how can you look at secure access and the entire focus around devices moving to the edge. Similarly, I think there's a lot of focus. I hope academia will give a lot more attention to this as they're building their curriculum and their faculty development, so that every young student can be taught around this in terms of the architecture practices of, security by design. How do you, it has taken every IT industry member a long time to even move to DevOps, right? How do you move to the DevSecOps so that security shifts left and you start looking at it from right from upfront when you're thinking of a product or a service, rather than you build a product and then you test it and then you realize there are these vulnerabilities, let me go fix them. I think that's not going to work anymore, because the go to market timelines of a product development, even if it is developed by academia or industry, is coming down. Everybody wants to be able to take the product to the market in the shortest time cycle, for which I think security by design is extremely important. Also privacy by design, but since this is a security conference, I'm focusing on that. Similarly, I think increasingly there's a focus on open standards and open architecture, because when you're building, when a startup or a researcher is building a product, I don't think that product is going to be consumed in isolation by a business. The product typically needs to integrate into the enterprise security stack deployed by that enterprise or that business or a bank or a telecom, right? It's not like they're going to develop consumer product. If I run a startup and a professor is from the academia, that my startup product and the academia solution is going to be consumed in isolation. It's going to be consumed along with the rest of the enterprise security stack that business has deployed to run their digital infrastructure. To be able to do that, it's extremely important that new products are built using open standards and open architecture. And how do you go ahead and integrate with the cloud platforms, integrate with the security incident management platforms they would have already deployed. This is extremely important. And there's a lot of focus around zero trust network architecture. It's no longer a buzzword. Almost every CISO is talking about it. every CISO has either already started evaluating or already started deploying, or definitely I think 2021 calendar year is a priority for them, particularly zero trust in terms of user access, network, and devices. I think these are the things. Going forward, zero trust for applications and workloads also should be happening. Okay. So in terms of, if you do a scan of the innovation ecosystem that is happening in India, I talked about those 175 or 180 startups that are building. Not all of them are early stage. Some of them are already 5 years and 10 years old, who are building products out of India. I think we see they all getting clustered into these five domains. Identity access management. There's a lot of focus because every enterprise, every large government department is giving a lot of focus on that. Yeah, and data security because of all the regulations around privacy that are coming up, and threat and vulnerability management, and broadly around email security, self-healing of network, self-healing of application security vulnerabilities. Cryptography is gaining a lot of attention, while of course cryptography has very severe, has niche use cases compared to others, but there is a lot we are beginning to see. A lot of it is happening in academia and public sector research labs, and a few select startups are also working on that. And broadly around how do you secure your remote access, because every large company whom you're talking to, at least in the IT industry and in telecom and others, I think while the work from home at scale might get reduced as the pandemic problem is completely solved, right, at some point of time. I don't know when that will happen, but I think given the learnings and experience from the last 1 year's operations and its success and its cost optimization, its ability to attract talent from remote locations, I think there will be an increased work from home kind of a next scenario. Maybe a part of your workforce will work from offices and part of your workforce will work from that. Because of which, all these solutions around, whether it is the cloud access security, whether it is in terms of how do you make sure that when you're onboarding a device, right? When an employee's laptop is onboarded onto the network, there was no challenge because the laptop used to come to office. That it was an office given laptop. It was a certain way in which the laptop was configured or locked down. So it was all taken care of. Whereas now a device is getting onboarded onto an enterprise network to do whatever the employee is supposed to do from home. And some home devices may also be getting onto the network. So how do you onboard devices in a secure way, and what all we need to do? Similarly, there's a lot around the perimeter and defining the perimeter, and can blockchain and distributed ledger technologies be used for that. So we are seeing a lot of innovation in the product ecosystem globally and in India around this secure remote access. You will see a totally new league of products. And of course, in threat and vulnerability management, there's a lot of focus, but if we are beginning to see a lot of focus now in terms of deception, in terms of threat hunting, and in terms of data security. One area that you will see, I would urge all of you all to look at, I think security as an area for innovation and product development is now known, is known in academia, is known in industry. But privacy as an opportunity area for technology development is still not picked up so much in India. There are a few startups who are working on technology solutions for privacy. There is a privacy technology landscape report that IAPP brings up. You should look at what are the technology innovation areas in privacy, the number of new companies that have come up in that, because you're beginning to see a lot of focus around that, not because of just regulator, but the consumer attention to privacy preservation, regulators, this thing, even the enterprises trying to say that they're giving enough attention to privacy in terms of whether it is in the area of rights management, in the area of using encryption technologies so that there can be enough privacy preservation when you're doing something on the wire. So we are beginning to these five. This I'll anyway leave the slides, you can look at it, right? So similarly, in terms of technology innovation, some trends that we are seeing is Typically in cybersecurity in the past, there's product development, there's some research in academia, and government is doing something else. They used to work in isolation. Whereas across various countries now, and in India, we are beginning to see this, there is a little more harmonized. There's still a lot more to be done. Little more harmonizing that is happening where industry is beginning to collaborate with academia, or academia is trying to collaborate with startups. Several academic institutions have incubated security startups, whether it's in the IITs, whether it's in Amrita, even in the lot of the new private universities. So academic collaboration, we still need to do more. That means a professor who has done a fundamental research, probably as an IP, is now saying, can I work with this startup in my incubator or in some other incubator? We're beginning to see that. Is there enough of that happening? I would still say a lot more needs to happen. Another interesting area we have seen in India in the last 2-3 years is large user enterprises, particularly banks and maybe some telecom companies who are partnering with a security startup for co-creation of a product. This is a very interesting trend we are seeing where the use cases and the requirement of a new white space on which you can innovate is coming from a user organization. And they're not saying now I'm going to develop it in-house, because it is not the job of a large bank or a telecom to build a product, security product in-house. They're saying this is my use case, inviting 10-15 startups, trying to match their competencies with the use case, taking a couple of 2 startups, asking them to work out of their office, or even giving them some funding sometimes. We need to see more of this happen, and I'm sure there'll be more such co-creation opportunities. Another interesting thing we are seeing in security product innovation in India is large system integrators, the large services companies out of India. Globally, we have seen that, whether it's IBM, Accenture, we are seeing that in India now, Infosys, Wipro, TCS, all Tech Mahindra, these kind of companies trying to partner, wanting to partner with startups, not just by investment and funding, but build a product and jointly go to the market and take that startup's product to the global markets. We're beginning to see this. And of course, several government bodies like CDAC and others do collaborate. And there is also an effort to be able to do a technology transfer. So why I'm trying to give this landscape is that we are moving in the right direction to be able to improve the innovation ecosystem out of India, so that academia, government, large industry players, and the small startups can collaborate so that we can see more products out of India. And in terms of technology adoption, if I look at those 180 product companies, what kind of security products they're building, many of them are built for the cloud. About 10% of them are leveraging blockchain, for example. The quantum and post-quantum crypto startups are very few, a handful of them, 3% of them. And AI, ML, of course, almost everybody is using them. And moving from signature-based to rule-based engines is another trend that we are seeing. So broadly, to be able to summarize where we are seeing adoption of emerging technologies for cybersecurity product development, we are seeing AI, ML, which is almost, the foundation in majority of the products, more than 75-80% of the products. RPA is another thing, remote robotic process automation. And we are beginning to see RPA in a lot of the, the threat mitigation technologies or in terms of data protection. Blockchain and distribution ledger is some new use cases. We are beginning to see interesting use cases. We have seen blockchain and all of that in e-governance applications and financial fintech applications, but we are beginning to see them in other areas now. And increasingly, we will see a lot around this things moving to the edge and the software-defined perimeter. Broadly, and cloud, of course, there's so many new startups in India which are working around various solutions around cloud security. I mean, some of them is focusing around infrastructure side, some of them are focusing around application side. Okay. And if you want to look at what would be the future, I think emerging technologies, whether it's AI, ML, robotic process automation or blockchain, increasingly being leveraged for new innovation in cyber. We believe that all the discussions and deliberations and evangelization of zero trust has happened. And now this year will pick up the wave for adoption. Banking sector is talking a lot about it, IT, ITS and telecom, and it's only a question of time. And because of the work from home environment, there is no way a CIO or a CISO cannot focus on this. And several companies are saying that we are going to move towards a borderless workforce. So many large IT members are saying they will now have talent hired from tier 2, tier 3 locations and not disturb them to come to Bangalore or a Mumbai, because of which I think this entire focus around the edge computing and in terms of how do you look at securing devices and users, and you know uh, this is an architecture paradigm that needs to change in the way in which you manage users and devices. We're beginning to see that. And I think there'll be a lot of focus around from government also. How can we leverage AI? While I think in the first 2 years, 3 years, the focus of government has been harnessing AI for social good in the area of healthcare or agri-tech. Now we are beginning to see a lot of focus around domains like cyber. Okay. In terms of talent pool, there's a huge shortage. I will not really elaborate on this. NASCOM and DSCI is focused on a lot. We have a concept of a sector skills council and a future skills platform. We partner with government and academic institutions. We've built a lot of job roles. We'll be increasing. Government is doing a lot of training programs for government officers and for CISOs. Similarly, we believe in the future where there would be a lot more interest. Our current assessment, please understand this assessment changes. I think even in the the peak time of the pandemic between August to October, when we did an analysis in India, there were 63,000 published job roles in cyber between industry members, right? There may be some job roles which are not published because they're moving people in house, but the published external job roles were 63,000, and those job roles are spanning each of this, whether it is in terms of forensics, whether it's in penetration testing or pen testing. IoT security is a new one, cloud security. These are some of the job roles that we are seeing, and advanced coding skills, whether and in the areas of architecture where you're building solutions which are cloud native. I think some of these will be some of the defined. This is based on a survey that we have done with our security product companies. They're saying that they're looking at more people who understand device drivers, who understand the hardware design capabilities, proficiency in cloud security. That means whether it's AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud, because the products are being developed for deployment on the cloud. These are some of the skills that are looking, other than your basic software engineering and coding skills. I think that's a hygiene factor. In addition, what are you looking at? So broadly, this is what I wanted to focus on in terms of where we are headed. And I'm happy to take any questions. In closing, I would like to say that any new security product, innovation, research in academia or industry, and talent development efforts that happen in academia should be in line with where technology trends are headed, both in the overall digital and in cybersecurity. Krishnashree, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. Wow, you really made this a very immersive experience going through each of your slides and giving us a full overview. This is the talk that actually we needed to have perhaps on the first day to just get an understanding of, where India is headed. And there are several questions. In fact, so I'll just quickly go over it. In fact, I wanted to, assign an hour for you initially, and then we cut it down to 45 minutes, which was, I think, not a good idea. I think the first question is, AI and machine learning are considered a double-edged sword. So means you can use it to enable or disable security. And do you see any challenges in terms of really attacking AI and machine learning? Do you see any challenges in terms of attacking AI and security? So I guess really it's still a very much gray area. And how do you see this evolve, AI and ML?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand that particularly when it comes to cybersecurity attacks, AI/ML is being leveraged as much as it is being leveraged by the providers. That is a challenge. I think every technology has the dark side of technology, as you call it. We've seen that in nuclear, we have seen that in biomedical, we have seen that everywhere. So AI has a lot of potential, but unfortunately, AI is also, there has been an ethics side of AI, and there is also a way where AI and ML is being leveraged to, kick or launch big scale attacks in cyber. So that cybercrime side and the vested interest of the cyber criminals from all kinds of actors, from fun-loving hackers to state actors, they go all that spectrum. Yeah, AI ML is there is a dark side of every technology, and I think it's a question of time. But that doesn't mean that we will not. The providers, whether it's the products and services, will not be using it. Every product I've talked about, that 80% of startups in India use AI ML for, whether it's in threat hunting, whether it's in self healing, so many of those technologies. There is a challenge. Several cyber criminals do use AI ML maybe sometimes more effectively than what we in the profession do. That's a challenge. I think it's a question of time. We've had those challenges even in nuclear, right? Over a period of time, there'll be some governance around that, hopefully.
And the next question is like, how do you think data protection should be enforced when you have multiple systems of varying device capabilities interconnected? So device capabilities, probably challenging data protection policies. How do you really cope up with this kind of scenario?
I don't think device, I mean, maybe I don't get the question. I don't think the device capabilities are challenging it. I think the entire data protection, first of all, comes from a point of view of how much of user awareness we are building, right? In India, there's a lot of user awareness that needs to be done. Second, we definitely need regulation. Unfortunately, in security and privacy, regulation drives enterprise behavior or business behavior, right? So you know how you GDPR got that compliance mindset. So the regulation needs to come in. Hopefully, the India Personal Data Protection Bill will come in. But even while that act has not yet come, once privacy was declared as a fundamental right, at least several responsible businesses are giving it due attention, because they need to ultimately win and retain the trust of their consumers, right? So if there's a user enterprise which is completely online, delivering services online, and every now and then if they keep having a privacy breach, consumers are going to look at an alternative enterprise which is doing a better job of security and privacy. So I would believe that a combination of user awareness, business drivers, because a business needs to protect and retain the trust of its consumers, and government and regulation and a strong enforcement, an independent entity which can enforce it, will drive the thing. Yeah, there is a host of heterogeneous devices, operating systems. How do you get all of that? I think those problems will get solved as and when the regulation and the enforcement mechanism.
Is something like GDPR going to happen in India?
Not really GDPR. We have an Indian Personal Data Protection Bill, which is the 2019 version. It was tabled in Parliament, but then it went into the Joint Parliamentary Committee. I think that's a very comprehensive regime from whatever version we have seen and the deliberations we've had with the JPC. What exactly is the version of the bill that will get tabled for enactment, we have to see. But I think it will be a comprehensive regime. It cannot not be a comprehensive regime, because our data protection regime first needs to meet the global expectations, because we work with so many geographies, right, of privacy, and it also needs to implement privacy as a fundamental right, and make sure those guarantees and remedies are provided for a common man and a common citizen. So I do believe that it will be a comprehensive regime.
One more last question. I know there are several more, but I think we are running out of time. How realistic is zero trust architecture while moving traditional network environments like OT to cloud with remote access?
See, it's too technical a question for me. But zero trust, first of all, I would like to tell you zero trust network architecture is not a product, is not one product. First of all, zero trust network architecture is a paradigm that you need to understand, apply it to your enterprise. How will you apply zero trust network architecture in a large online consumer B2C e-commerce company versus zero trust network architecture in a bank, in an oil and gas company, in a large ITS company with remote workforce is very different. So first, you need to understand zero trust network architecture is a new paradigm. Once you understand that, you need to map your architecture decisions and your deployment decisions and your product selection criteria, what products or what stack of products you will select to implement zero trust network architecture based on your enterprise digital footprint. Right? If you're an enterprise completely in one location, in one building, versus you're an enterprise which is spread across the world and you have people working from all kinds of locations, or you're an oil and gas company which has remote oil wells and remote monitoring stations and all of that, what is zero trust network architecture is going to be different, and what kind of products you need to do that. So I believe now at least most mature CIOs and CISOs by the end of 2020, I believe at least have a good understanding of zero trust network architecture. It's not a single product you buy from a vendor and you say, now I'm ZTNA ready. You need to understand how will you apply the concepts and paradigm of ZTNA to your enterprise, which will be different based on what your digital footprint is. And then go ahead and select the necessary products.
Wonderful. So anyway, before we conclude, I just wanted to mention that even though Amrita has not been formally part of the ISEA program, we've done tremendous work in reaching out to more than 20,000 students across 21 plus states and training students in cybersecurity, in really warming them up and upskilling them significantly, and love to work with the SEI more closely on creating a bigger impact. And this has all been done, using our enthusiastic faculty and students at our center. So with that, I would really like to thank you, ma'am, for your time, especially on a Sunday, and really coming and sharing with us this, new perspective. In fact, you were right, when we traveled together, there were about 35, 36 companies, focusing on cybersecurity 3-4 years ago. And it's very heartening to see how that number has really grown so much. And India is reliant on its own indigenous products, which was absolutely not the case 5 years ago, for example. So with that, again, I thank you very much, and I hope to have you as a speaker more in our forums. I think you give a very, very good perspective, and more importantly, you're one of our really great role models as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Krishnashree, for having me. In closing, I would say if both academia and industry can partner to attract more women into the cybersecurity domain, both in academia and research, and also in our workforce, because it's broadly only 11% as of now.
Yes, absolutely. That is the
Women
goal.
in Security is a program that we actively drive. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.